Sometimes the scariest thing about Euphoria isn't the drugs, the violence, or the lies. It's the fact that every character knows they're destroying themselves, and they keep going anyway. Tonight's episode of Euphoria Season 3 Episode 7, titled Rain or Shine, might honestly be the darkest chapter of the entire season so far. After the brutal ending of Episode 6, Rue is completely trapped between survival and destruction, while every single relationship around her is starting to collapse. And by the end of this episode, it becomes clear that nobody is walking into the finale the same person anymore. The episode opens with heavy rain pouring across the city while Rue narrates that growing up, she always believed pain had meaning. She says people love telling addicts that suffering teaches lessons, but nobody talks about what happens when suffering becomes normal. Right from the start, the episode feels emotionally exhausted. There's no bright music, no flashy transitions, no energy. Everything feels cold and hopeless. We then see Rue sitting alone inside Alamo's apartment after the events of Episode 6. Her face is bruised, her hands are shaking, and she hasn't slept. The camera barely moves while Rue stares at herself in the mirror, almost like she doesn't recognize who she's become anymore. What makes this scene powerful is that Zendaya barely speaks. Most of the emotion comes from silence. Alamo enters the room and immediately starts manipulating Rue again. He tells her that pain changes people and says she survived because she's stronger than everybody else. But the way he talks feels terrifying because he's trying to convince Rue that trauma is some kind of transformation. He keeps pushing the idea that she's different now, tougher, smarter, beyond guilt. And deep down, Rue knows he's trying to reshape her into someone completely dependent on him. Then the episode introduces the main conflict. Alamo reveals that Laurie moved her money and drugs into a new safe location, and he wants Rue involved in the robbery. The moment Laurie's name gets mentioned, Rue completely freezes. Even after everything that's happened this season, Laurie still feels like the most dangerous person in the entire show. She never screams, never threatens, never loses control. And that's exactly what makes her terrifying. Rue tries refusing at first, but Alamo reminds her that she already owes to many people too much money. He basically tells her there's no escape anymore. Either she helps him rob Laurie, or she becomes disposable. Meanwhile, the episode cuts to Cassie waking up alone inside the huge empty house she shares with Nate. And honestly, this might be the saddest Cassie episode we've seen all season. Earlier in the season, she believed marrying Nate would finally give her stability and love. But now she looks completely emotionally hollow. She opens her phone and sees thousands of comments attacking her online after clips from her influencer streams started spreading everywhere. Some people support her, but most are mocking her. The important thing is that Cassie keeps reading the comments, even though they're destroying her mentally. Euphoria always shows how characters become addicted to attention the same way they become addicted to drugs. Then Nate appears downstairs drinking alone in the kitchen. Their conversation feels painfully awkward. There's no love left between them anymore. Cassie asks Nate if he even still cares about her, and Nate responds by asking if she still cares about herself. That line completely destroys the mood of the scene because you can tell both of them already know the relationship is dying. The tension gets worse when Cassie reveals she deleted part of her online content without telling Maddy first. And this becomes important later because Maddy had business deals connected to Cassie's growing popularity. Nate immediately gets angry because the money situation is already collapsing around them. He tells Cassie she ruins everything she touches, and for a second it looks like he's about to completely explode again. But instead of yelling, Nate just walks away silently. And honestly, that's scarier. The episode then shifts to Jules for the first major time in several episodes. Jules has mostly stayed emotionally disconnected this season, but here we finally understand why. She visits Rue's old room and starts looking through photos, notebooks, and old memories from earlier seasons. The scene is heartbreaking because Jules realizes she's mourning someone who's technically still alive. She keeps replaying voice messages from Rue over and over again. Some are funny, some are emotional, and some are from when Rue was sober and hopeful. And the more Jules listens, the more obvious it becomes that she still loves Rue deeply, but no longer knows how to reach her. Then comes one of the most important moments in the entire episode. Rue unexpectedly meets Ali. The scene happens outside a diner during the rain. Rue looks exhausted, paranoid, and emotionally numb. Ali notices immediately that something is seriously wrong. What makes Ollie different from everyone else in Rue's life is that he never tries to rescue her emotionally. He forces her to face herself honestly. Ollie asks Rue a simple question: when was the last time you told the truth? Rue doesn't answer. Ollie then tells Rue that addicts become dangerous when they stop believing they deserve saving. He explains that once somebody accepts destruction as their identity, they stop fighting to survive at all. And you can see Rue slowly breaking apart emotionally because deep down she knows he's right. For the first time all season, Rue finally admits she's scared. Not scared of dying, scared of becoming someone who doesn't care anymore. That line honestly feels like the emotional center of the episode. Ollie tells Rue that guilt can either destroy a person or wake them up. But he warns her that eventually every addict reaches a moment where they must choose whether they want freedom or oblivion. The conversation ends with Ollie telling Rue, "You keep waiting for somebody to save you, but everybody who loved you already tried." That line hits incredibly hard because it summarizes Rue's entire story across all 3 seasons. Back at Maddy's apartment, things completely explode between her and Cassie. Maddy confronts Cassie about deleting the content connected to their business deals. At first the argument feels calm, but underneath it there's years of betrayal, jealousy, and resentment building up again. Cassie tries explaining that she hates what she's becoming online. She says every time she posts something she feels emptier afterward. But Maddy doesn't sympathize anymore. She tells Cassie that she keeps pretending to be innocent while destroying everybody around her. Then Maddy says something brutal: "You want people to save you from consequences every single time." Cassie starts crying immediately because deep down she knows it's true. The argument becomes vicious fast. Cassie accuses Maddy of using her for money and attention, while Maddy accuses Cassie of turning herself into a victim every time her choices backfire. It honestly feels like two broken versions of themselves finally seeing each other clearly for the first time. Eventually, Cassie leaves completely devastated. But the most dangerous storyline of the episode belongs to Nate. Late at night, Nate discovers people connected to his debt problems have started threatening his family directly. And this completely pushes him over the edge mentally. Throughout the season, Nate has tried controlling everything through intimidation, money, or manipulation. But now even he's losing control of the situation. There's a terrifying scene where Nate sits alone in his car gripping the steering wheel so hard his hands start bleeding. No music plays. No dialogue happens. Just silence. And then Nate finally snaps. The episode never fully reveals what he's planning, but it becomes obvious he's preparing for violence. He starts gathering weapons, cash, and fake documents while calling mysterious contacts. Euphoria frames the scene almost like a crime thriller instead of a teen drama. Meanwhile, Rue finally reaches Laurie's location with Alamo's crew. The entire robbery sequence feels incredibly tense because Laurie herself barely appears at first. The house is quiet, clean, and unnaturally calm. Rue keeps having flashbacks to earlier moments with Laurie, remembering how polite she always sounded while quietly threatening people's lives. As the crew searches for the safe, Rue slowly realizes something horrifying. Laurie already knew they were coming. That twist changes everything. Suddenly, alarms begin triggering across the house while armed men start surrounding the property outside. Alamo immediately panics because the entire robbery was apparently a setup. Chaos erupts everywhere. People start shooting. Windows shatter. Rue gets separated from the group. And for several minutes, the episode becomes pure panic. But the craziest moment happens when Rue finally comes face to face with Laurie again. Laurie remains completely calm. She simply looks at Rue and says, "I was wondering how long it would take before somebody used you against me." That line is terrifying because Laurie never sounds emotional. She talks like someone already 10 steps ahead of everybody else. Rue begs Laurie to let her leave, but Laurie tells her something incredibly dark. She says Rue keeps confusing survival with freedom. According to Laurie, addicts don't escape systems like this. They just move from one owner to another. And honestly, that might be the darkest line of the entire season. Before anything else happens, police sirens suddenly begin approaching the neighborhood. Somebody anonymously tipped authorities about the robbery, forcing everybody to scatter immediately. Alamo escapes. Laurie disappears. And Rue barely survives.